Welcome to Straight Talk and Retirement, your no-hype source for financial advice and making informed choices about your retirement plan. Get on the phone to talk today at 314-931-5877 or text your question to 84126.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Now, here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, hello, St. Louis, and welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement, your live and local St. Louis's favorite financial call-in show. I'm Erin Lapidus, president of JBL Financial Services, financial planner and wealth manager. And this morning, I'm joined in the studio by my dad, Jeff Lapidus, retirement planner and retirement coach. You're back.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you back.
I like this scenery better than the alligator.
Beautiful. And my husband, Robert Markham, our life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist.
Good morning.
Good morning. We help our clients make smart choices about their money. The way we do that is by designing a game plan, a real strategy with several goals in mind.
First is to preserve, protect, and prudently grow the assets our clients have taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate.
Second is to provide an income stream they can rely on so they can do all the things they want to do in retirement.
And third is cost-effectively addressing their health care needs, like helping individuals enroll in Medicare and choosing the right plan to couple with their Medicare coverage.
And then when they're done enjoying their assets during their lifetime, we show them how to pass them on to the people they love, whether it's their spouses or children, grandchildren, churches, or charities, whoever it might be, without Uncle Sam or the tax courts taking a big bite out of their money. And as their wealth managers, Erin, Rob, and I watch their money every single day, make sure they're staying on track. And that's why they call us the retirement coaches.
Good morning.
Good morning, kiddies.
Good morning. It's great to see you.
It's really nice to see you and be able to interface with you directly here on the radio. Our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. We always have a lot of things on our mind, but what's more important? What's on yours? Give us a call today, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. And as a reminder, all of our clients are folks like you. They're our listeners. They're 55 and older. They would like to retire or they're already retired. And we create a game plan for them so they can have a fun, a financially successful retirement.
That's right, and there are several ways that you can keep in touch with us throughout the week. If you log onto our website, jblfinancial.com, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a Contact Us button where you can request a coaching session, financial, Medicare, or both. You can even ask us a question during the show or after, and we'll be sure to attempt to get back to you as quickly as possible. On the lower left-hand side of the screen, there's a pop-up box that appears. It says sign up for our monthly newsletter. We call it the Coach's Corner, and Rob keeps it updated for, I think, the past 18 months.
Yes, we have quite a bit of content on the website, and
right,
I
not
invite
just the
everyone.
Website, not just the newsletter, right?
Absolutely. We have some webinars, I believe, and some podcasts as well.
That's right. We've got old shows. We've got the podcast. We've got some video clips. You can also log on to our Facebook, our YouTube, or our Twitter to get additional updates from us throughout the week and the month. But if you'd like, in your inbox on the 1st of every month, you can receive our monthly newsletter, The Coach's Corner. Rob, tell us a little bit about our March 2025 newsletter.
Got some great articles in the March 2025 newsletter you're certainly going to want to check out. First one being funding the federal government. Government took in $4 trillion in tax revenue last year.
It feels like it all came from me.
It's too bad they spent $6.
I guess it wasn't a big enough, didn't get enough revenue. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, there's a great little infographic there that breaks down where those sources of revenue come from. Very interesting article. Our next one, are you missing the bullseye with a target date fund? You know, according to the article, 2 out of every 3 401k participants have some level of assets in a target date fund.
I think a lot of that has to center around the fact that that is an automatic option that is provided to them if they don't make their own individual investment selections.
Absolutely, it's the default setting for many participants. So a lot of people have assets in these funds without even knowing it. That said, target date funds don't take into account your risk tolerances, your personal goals, asset levels, sources of income, any other factors that make an investor unique. And because these are so common, obviously people have a lot of questions about them. This article will definitely fill in any knowledge gaps you may have about these very popular and very common 401k choices.
Excellent.
And our next article, the Versatile Roth IRA. It's just an all-encompassing look at another very popular retirement savings vehicle. It highlights some of the lesser-known penalty-free withdrawals that you can avail yourself of, whether it's a first-time home purchase or possibly paying for college or medical expenses for yourself or a loved one.
I also think this is a great article because it has a nice little infographic in there that reflects the income limits for Roth contributions.
Right. Not everyone is eligible to make Roth contributions. It's a situation where if you're a little bit too successful, you get phased out.
That's right. So the only thing this article doesn't cover is the backdoor Roth, which is a way for those individuals to potentially get some funds into a Roth account if they have exceeded those income limitations.
And our last article, breaking down the soaring U.S. national debt. And this is a great article because it explains the difference between a deficit and a debt. And, I didn't realize, but I found quite astonishing that over the last 50 years we've run a fiscal deficit 46 times. That seems exorbitant.
And I thought, funny as I was reading this article, before the show, before March began, I thought, I wonder if anyone will ever ask me this question. And in fact, one of the clients, as we were having a conversation, just centered around some of the changes that the administration is looking to make to bring down the deficit and hopefully eventually bringing down the debt, talking about the difference between those two. And my thought is the deficit eventually becomes part of the debt. Deficit is what happens on an annual basis. That's the shortage that you're running during the year.
Which gets piled on to what you didn't pay last year.
If you actually spend it. Now, usually we're pretty well entrenched in the fact that if the government shows they're running a deficit towards the beginning of the year, we're not seeing that reverse through additional revenues or anything like that. That's a little different. Sometimes companies ebb and flow. Maybe they're seasonal, so they might be running a deficit until they have more revenue to offset that. We usually just see deficit be added to our national debt tally.
And, one of the things that I came across as I scanned the newspapers this week was even though we've seen a lot in the news about, cost-cutting measures and trying to trim back some of the fat in the budget, we are on pace to spend more money this year than we did last year.
I just think that's one of those numbers where they every single year, even during the Clinton administration, the debt rose on an annual basis. Well, the debt's always higher than it's ever been. It's going to continue that way unless there's a significant change. So I feel like that's a juke stat a little bit.
You could be right on that. And, when you look at the three major programs that make up the majority of the spending between Social Security, Medicare, and the military, it really, when you're done funding those three, it doesn't really leave a lot to cut when you really get down to it. But an interesting article nonetheless.
Guess I'll just have to give $5 trillion this year in tax dollar.
And that is your March 2025 newsletter. And be on the lookout because in another 10 days or so, we're going to have the April. We're just speed running through this year. We were talking about last night. We're already a third through it.
Yeah, Rob says to me last night, I can't believe it's March. I'm like, dude, it's March 21st. We're 3/4 of the way done with the month, almost.
Hey, a few more months, we'll be watching preseason football, and how great is that?
Pretty great.
Time
if you're an Eagles fan,
right?
That's right.
Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the KTRS text line. And so while we're waiting for your initial phone calls and texts, which again, we'd love to get it 931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. I thought it would be fun to start off with a topic that has come up in several of the last coaching sessions that we've been having with not only clients but also with some prospective clients.
I think this is a great one. Reasons to roll your 401k.
Yes. And let's start off with Paul. Paul was somebody that came in and visited with us early last week. He's turning 73 in February of next year. So naturally it was important for him to have a discussion about requirement of distributions, how much is it, will I own it, when to how I take it, etc. We can certainly go through some of that information, but we again knew that he's no longer currently active in his current employer's work plan, and therefore he has stopped participating, making contributions. But he also hasn't moved the money from the plan to a self-directed IRA. Should he?
I think this is a great question because oftentimes, especially when we're meeting with prospective clients that are preparing to retire, maybe they've already just retired, and there are conversations about when it makes sense to potentially leave your assets at the 401k company. But I think it's great to see the other side of things, which is when does it make sense to actually roll those assets over? And I think this is a great example because to start, the plan sponsor, so whom you're holding that 401k with, is going to force the required minimum distribution to you every year. They're just going to essentially cut you a check, and they're going to withhold 20% in federal taxes, regardless of your tax bracket.
And you don't have a choice.
No.
And in many cases, what happens is that they may have already have a pre-selected time that they're doing this. You may be able to tell them what the tax withholding is, but the money's coming.
In a way, I mean, you can never be penalized for not taking your RMD.
Well, but that's only out of that 401k. If you have other accounts elsewhere, that's not added into the tally. And Dad, you make an excellent point, which is you don't get to time this unless you call on your own and request it. They're going to force it out at a specific time of year, and you don't get to modify those tax withholdings. So one, if you want to withhold less, which is a distinct possibility, you're going to have to wait for your return. Or two, if you wanted to withhold more, you're just going to have to withhold more from somewhere else.
And I would imagine this primarily has to do with the idea that, 401ks are an accumulation vehicle where IRAs are a distribution vehicle. So obviously, they're not geared to do what they're being forced to do.
That's a great point.
So I was just going to say there's some flexibility that you lose.
Yes.
And this is really where I think we want to sort of focus, at least for the next minute or two, on what do you lose by not moving the money? Well, number one is what you lose is you lose control. Because we know that the IRS says that if you have more than one retirement account, you can pull money. You don't have to pull money proportionally from each account. You can pull it all from one account. You can pull it from both accounts, etc. If your money is still in the 401k, they're going to force that out.
Right.
So that really reduces your choices.
Your ability to be strategic in how you go about this are kind of hamstrung.
Yes.
Also, so to be clear, the 401k, when you are required minimum distribution age, if it is still with the plan sponsor, it stands alone against all of your other required minimum distribution eligible accounts. So let's just say we'll make Paul a little more complicated. Paul has a 401k. He's no longer working. He's required to take a distribution from that this year because he's turning 73. But he also has an IRA account that's held outside as well. The 401k plan is going to force the money out to him, and he still has to take money out of the IRA.
So let's do a simple numeric here.
Let's
say that Paul has $500,000 in his 401k plan. 4% withdrawal rate, 4% RMD. He has to pull $20,000. Mm-hmm. Let's say he has traditional IRA plans that are out there that they're worth $200,000. We know he has to pull an additional $8,000. So between the two, he's got about $28,000 he needs to pull. If this money had been in a separate IRA, not in his 401k, he could have decided to take all of it from that account, from the other account. He could have split it, etc. He loses that flexibility. That's important. Also, he loses something else that's important, we think, which is the ability to have money sent to charitable organizations of his choice and have those reduce that RMD, because 401k plan sponsors, they don't do that. But IRA plan sponsors are required to do that.
Can't control where or when. And some people like to marry their RMD distributions with a event like, oh, I know I have to pay my taxes, at the end of the year, so send it to me then. You lose all that flexibility.
Right, and the 401k plan sponsors, they aren't allowed, like you said, Dad, to send third-party check distributions to charities. Usually the requirements are the check has to go to the participant's address of record. A lot of 401k plans don't even do electronic distributions of assets, meaning they won't send it directly to a bank account or to another IRA account, potentially to do that rollover. There's still paper check distributions, so there are a lot of limitations, especially once you get to required minimum distribution age when you are attempting to make withdrawals from your 401ks.
Yeah, and maybe the number one is that, putting the RMDs aside, if Paul were to determine that he would like to draw from these retirement plan assets, maybe in the form of an income stream, one that matches his current expense patterns, he can't do that from a 401k. 401ks aren't set up to do monthly distributions. This is really an IRA. You need to be inside of a self-directed IRA.
In order to really create that flexibility that most people are looking for from their assets over time.
You certainly want more options than less. That's why moving it over to an IRA is certainly going to be beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the very end of the day, there truly isn't an investment that you can make inside of a 401k that you can't do in a self-directed IRA, and that would include stock of let's say, of a company that you're currently working for, if you didn't, because that doesn't roll over.
Sure.
So if you're working with a financial advisor who's required to, through his, we'll call it his duty as working as a fiduciary for you, is required to find you the lowest cost, let's say mutual funds, like even if you wanted to duplicate what you had in your current plan, they'll be finding you funds that are similarly expensed, because they're going to be looking at purchasing for you institutional share funds, the same type that you have in your 401k. So expenses shouldn't be an issue, but flexibility is. So in Paul's case, it certainly made some sense to consider adding flexibility to his plan, not only for himself, but also ultimately for his beneficiaries. But let's just assume for a moment that Paul is currently working. Mm-hmm. Let's assume he's also not an owner.
Right, because the threshold is if you own 5% or more of the company, you're not going to fall into this category.
Right. So if he was working, actively at work at age 73, what are the required minimum distribution rules? Do they actually apply to Paul?
They don't.
That's cool. That's right.
Woohoo.
Exactly. So he doesn't have to take a distribution
from the 401k. So if we were using that same example that you used before, Dad, where Paul's got $500,000 in his 401k, but instead of being retired, he's actively working, the IRS gives you it's called the still working exemption. So if you are still working and contributing to a plan when you reach your required minimum distribution age, they are going to let you bypass the requirement for the funds that are inside of your 401k for as long as you continue to work. This does not exempt you from all required minimum distributions. So if we go back to the example where Paul had $500,000 in his 401k and $200,000 in IRA assets held elsewhere, he's still going to have to take the required minimum distribution on the $200,000 of IRA assets, but the $500,000 of 401k assets he will not have to take the distribution from. And as we've been having this conversation, it has led me to think about, we've often had conversations about having you move your retirement plans with you as you transition through employment. So as you get a new job, it makes sense either to take that money with you, either roll it into your new company plan that's available, or you might consider rolling it into a self-directed IRA at that point, depending upon your situation. If Paul had $500,000 in his active 401k that he is currently at work, but he has an old 401k hanging out somewhere else, they're going to force that distribution out to him because it doesn't exempt you from all 401k distributions. It only exempts you from the plan that you're a participant of if you've reached 73.
An active participant. That's
exactly.
Right. So let's assume for a moment. So we've kind of gone through the two scenarios, which is Paul's left the company and he's 73. He hadn't taken his 401k. We know they're going to push it out. We've also gone through Paul is 73. He's still actively at work, so they don't need to push it out. But what happens if he retires in the year that he turns 73?
He has to take it.
That's right.
I default to the IRS gets their cash.
Yeah, I was like, right. He's still going to have to take that.
Right, and I guess and that was kind of obvious, right? Because we just went through it. But the wrinkle here is that all plans don't handle things the same way.
Yes,
we did have a situation last week where we were in the middle of doing a rollover for a particular client who was turning 73, and we had to ask the company whether they were going to send him his required minimum distribution before they sent the money, the balance of the assets to the self-directed IRA that we set up for him. Interestingly enough, we've had probably, if we've done this 10 times, we've had 9 companies that have said, yes, we're taking the RMD first before we do it. This particular company, we found out, no, they're going to let us do it.
Right. And so just like you said, Dad, some companies, not only will they send it, but you can't do your rollover until they have sent the RMD. So it actually has to go in that order. The required minimum distribution for 2025 has to go out. Then they can execute your request to roll the funds over to a self-directed IRA. But just like you said, just last week we had a new incident where not only did they not require the participant to take the funds, we had to ask what was the required minimum distribution so we could make sure that when the funds come over, we're correctly doing the withdrawal for them for this year, because we know that they have to take it regardless.
Yeah, I think that, at the end of the day, the moral of the story is that this is not something that you want to attempt to do, even if you're a do-it-yourselfer alone, because there are questions that you need to ask that you may not know. If they, like in this particular case with Paul, if he had rolled his money over to a self-directed IRA and they hadn't made the RMD, well, he's going to have to do it himself.
That's right.
Well, that's cool, but maybe he doesn't remember that. Okay, and it wouldn't be unusual for somebody not to know that. But again, working with a professional advisor, you should. They do know the rules. They'll help you make sure the rules are followed. Taxes are withheld if there's need to be, et cetera, and really talk about what your options are. And again, what's cool is that there's no cost to do that.
No.
So again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
And we're going to take our first break of the hour, but we got some great text on Doc, so we're going to get to those as soon as we get back. So don't touch that dial. We'll be back with more Straight Talk on Retirement after these brief messages.
I'm Mike Robinson with Robank Properties, and I want your fixer-upper home or condo. It's crazy to spend a ton of money fixing it up when I will pay you top dollar right now. I don't even care what condition it's in. Your trash is my treasure. No inspections, no contingencies, just cold, hard cash. Call me, Mike Robinson, at 314-283-0867. That's Mike Robinson, 314-283-0867, or at ROBANGproperties.com.
Are you old school or are you new school? Doesn't really matter, because if you need a hardware store, where do you go? Schnarr's Hardware, and their 2 locations, East Lockwood and Webster Groves, and, of course, their world headquarters on Clayton Road. You see, Schnarr's Hardware is one of those places where you walk in and you say, this thing broke off my toilet. Do you have one of these? Yeah, follow me. And they take you in the back, and you pass 19 different aisles of things that you wish you could stop and look at. And do you need a 3-inch or a 4-inch? I think I need a 3-inch. Great. I'll buy 2, and I'll bring the other one back. That's why Schnarr's Hardware has been so successful. It's the customer service and the attention to detail. Whether you need fertilizer or whether you need something for the kitchen, maybe something for the big green egg. 2 locations, 1 great hardware store, Schnarr's Hardware. And yes, the popcorn is always free, as well as the smell, because it smells like a hardware store. East Lockwood and Webster Groves, and on Clayton Road in Ladue, Schnarr's or schnarrs.com. We'll see you there.
Greetings. I'm Camille Reinhold with Happy Brain Counseling in Kirkwood, Missouri. At Happy Brain, we want to help every person we see to feel better. Our group of therapists are highly trained and skilled to support all types of issues and concerns. Please check out our live show monthly on Sundays at 10 a.m. Our website is happy-brain.com. happy-brain.com.
Look at our alums, the contributions that they have made throughout industries in the St. Louis region.
Terry Freerks, a graduate of the University of Missouri, St. Louis.
UMSL is embedded in the fabric of the St. Louis community. We're hands-on, and when our students graduate, they are definitely career ready, but maybe more importantly, they're career confident.
More is what moves us. Find your more at more.umsl.edu.
Do you hear that? Asthma triggers are everywhere, from dust mites, pet dander, and pollen, to smog and smoke. An asthma attack can strike anywhere, anytime. Be prepared with quick-acting Primatene Mist. Clinically proven to open airways quickly. It's the #1 FDA-approved asthma inhaler available over the counter. Primatene Mist. Breathe easy again. Use as directed.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to the show. It's 9:32 here on the Big 550 KTRS. Talk Radio St. Louis. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
I'm Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach.
And I'm Robert Markham, your life insurance and fixed annuity sales specialist.
And we are willing, waiting, and wanting to answer your questions at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. And what's interesting is, the text line's starting to fill up. But the very first text that came through was, Jeff, it's so great that you're back in the studio.
Mom sent that.
Exactly.
Too much husband time.
That's right. It's called Too Much Husband, Same Amount of Money. So I mean, I don't blame the woman, but I could have sent the alternate.
The dog?
No, which was, I miss you.
Oh.
No, I don't. See ya.
Oh, my goodness.
See ya.
Lucky she's out having a good morning, not listening to us.
Absolutely. I'm not going to get dinner tonight. But let's go to our text line.
And we've got some great ones on deck. Our first one writes, good morning. I've got a little predicament here that I think I maybe need some help from you guys. I'm preparing my taxes. I realize that between my Roth at work and the other Roth I have, I put too much money in between the two accounts. I guess my question is, how do I remedy this problem?
Oh, this is a quick fix. All you have to do, and my suggestion is to do this in the Roth IRA that is not at work, extract the excess contribution. So what will happen is when you contact the custodian of the account of the Roth that you're holding, of the IRA, when you contact the custodian,
IRA Roth.
Thank you. They're going to go back to the date that you made the contribution. They're going to calculate any gains or losses from the portion of the contribution that is excess, and you will extract the contribution plus any potential gains. Obviously, over the course of the last few months, we've seen some pullback in the market. So maybe you're just extracting the contribution, but they will allow you to do this. It will correct the problem, and you won't have to worry about ongoing ongoing assessments over the lifetime of the Roth. So you definitely want to get that extracted, and it usually is a pretty simple process. I would say, in dealing with our broker-dealer, it takes less than a week for this to happen, so you can get this taken care of before you file your taxes, so you can feel confident before you sign the return. But you do want to get that money out because every year they're going to assess a penalty for that excess contribution, and you can get that cleared out without usually even any fees.
I think the penalty is 6%.
Yeah, it's pretty steep, and it's ongoing every single year. You don't want to have to calculate that or pay someone to calculate it, or really, you don't want to have to pay it. So that no worries there. It happens quite frequently to individuals, especially if you're making contributions across multiple accounts. So although the IRS seems punitive, they are reasonable.
Yeah, again, I would say that if you find yourself in this unique situation where you have the money and you're eligible to make a contribution, but you want to be careful, you may just want to wait until your taxes are actually prepared to make that excess contribution. That way you'll be right on line. And as long as, again, you do it before the date of filing of your taxes, you'll still get credit for being able to put in that money for that taxable year.
That's a good point. So to avoid this issue in the future, if you just wait until about this time every year, you prepare your taxes, you see, I can't make the full $8,000 contribution, but I can do $7,222, then you know exactly what you can do. You can put it in for a previous year contribution, and you won't have any troubles.
I'm glad our texter was able to catch this before it turned into a penalized event.
Yes. Absolutely.
And just as an aside, I mean, being that retirement savings are so paramount to people's well-being, I don't know why they put any limitations on this.
Taxes.
Right. Uncle Sam wants to get their money, but I think what's interesting here is, and again, we don't know anything about this texter, but I'm wondering is if this texter happened to be married, did they make a Roth contribution for their spouse? So they may be able to just pull the money and then transfer that into a Roth IRA for their spouse, maybe.
Right. You still have to extract the money from your Roth. Now, maybe you can repurpose that into your spouse's Roth. And funny that you say that, Dad. It's as if you knew what the next text was going to be.
And our texter writes, "Good morning, guys. Can you explain a spousal Roth, please? I was listening to a show where they were talking to someone, and this person's spouse didn't work. But they told him he needed to get a spousal Roth going. I thought you had to have a stream of earned income in order to have a Roth. Thank you."
You do. But the cool news, just like with Social Security, where the government allows you to claim a spousal benefit off of your spouse's earnings, the IRS also allows you to make contributions for your spouse if one of you is earning income and the other may no longer be earning income. There are limitations on contributions to Roths in terms of income, in terms of household income. There are also limitations on IRA contributions in terms of household income if you have access to a retirement plan through work. So spousal Roth IRAs and IRAs are eligible for contributions if your spouse is not working, but you are. But you also want to check the income limitations before just throwing some extra cash in there.
Right, and this applies equally the same to both traditional IRA or Roth IRA.
That's right.
And our next texter writes, "Have you been hearing more about Social Security being reduced by 20% by 2035? It is usually better to pull from savings and let Social Securities grow 8% a year, or having one spouse take Social Security and let the other higher earning spouse's benefit grow. Mostly wanting to know if there is a threat looming larger to take it now while it's still a full benefit."
No. I mean, I would say categorically no.
I would say that this is one of those articles. I bet if you went into your browser, I won't give Google any ads or anything, but if you just went into your browser and you typed in, Social Security potential reduction, and you looked at all the years that the articles were published, I think that you would see one at least once every 4 years for every presidential election, probably once every 2 years for every midterm election, and then anytime there's any type of budget negotiation, which is what we're doing right now with the tax plan, you get the articles again. I feel like these are things that are constantly brought up. They're constantly renegotiated, and we're often seeing, just like several years ago when some of the Social Security claiming strategies were altered, that extended the life of Social Security. And Dad, as you like to say, and this is the hardest one to argue against, as long as there are taxpayers and workers, there's going to be Social Security. We also haven't seen, over the past 4 years, we've seen massive Social Security increases through cost of living adjustments. We've seen no talks of potential cuts. So obviously we don't have crystal balls, and we're certainly not on the floor of the House or the Senate. But
I mean, they may adjust the retirement age. They may play with,
as they've continued to do,
right, as a way of pushing out the benefits. But I don't think this is a very, very popular program, probably the most popular in our nation. So the idea that it's going away, I just think that's clickbait.
I think that the streetlights are going out before Social Security checks stop.
Generally, I would also say that I would want to check and see who the author of the article is, because at the end of the day, you
can be loaded.
Right? You can be having people that are selling products as alternatives to helping you bridge that gap with Social Security. The kids have obviously said what I was thinking. What my real feelings here about this, but Social Security is like a defined benefit pension. The difference is that benefits are backed by the full faith of the U.S. government, which is, i.e., through the taxpayers. And again, there is no one that is currently in office, would like to be in office, or ever would be future elected in office that would ever vote to cut Social Security benefits. The Trump administration is not actually looking at cutting benefits. They're looking at actually cutting taxes behind those benefits, which is, who knows if it will happen or not. But in either case, this is something that has been coming up for years, and there is no solution. There is no lockbox. But there are, as Erin said, there are taxpayers out there working. You're funding those folks that are retired, so it's all good.
And the only time I can even ever think of them talking about, in a serious, deep core way, making some fundamental changes to the program was about 25 years ago with George W. Bush, when he talked about having younger workers being able to set aside a portion of their Social Security, much like a 401k, and that went exactly nowhere. They practically burned them at the stake. I thought it was an interesting idea at the time. I still think it is kind of interesting.
You're making a great point, which is that even the conversation centering around privatization of Social Security, which is essentially an idea that the Bush administration had, I don't think we've heard that since the second Bush administration.
They burned him so bad for that, it never got brought up again. I thought it was an interesting, not for people who don't have enough time to build that asset base, but for younger workers that were just coming into the workforce, I thought it was an interesting idea, and I thought it would help clean up some of the government books. It was a road not taken, obviously, but that's the level of commitment that the government and the people who receive these funds from these programs have towards keeping the current paradigm in place.
Indeed. And we've got another Social Security question on deck.
And our texter writes, "Good morning. Really enjoying the show so far." Oh, I'm sorry. Well, they come in a little bit jumbled. And our next texter writes, "What is the current state of the windfall elimination provision deduction from Social Security beneficiary payments? Is it still on?"
So, cool news. I received notice from one of our clients that was subject to the windfall provision. They received their back pay already. They've also received their increase in their Social Security benefits.
Woo-hoo. Who says the wheels of government turn slowly?
I don't know if that means that they have taken care of everyone's or if they're doing it in some sort of order. I haven't read anything specific. I know that if you call Social Security, you'll probably be on hold until you get your return back. But I have heard that it's already in the works. People are already making adjustments. And there's another important caveat to this, which is if you are someone that was originally subject to the windfall provision and you elected your own benefit because of that, you took whatever was available to you, you have the opportunity to go back and reconsider if the spousal benefit is now of more significant value to you, and you'll be able to, it's not really making a switch. What they will do is adjust your Social Security benefit to meet what it should have been. So if you are someone in that situation, you might want to call Social Security to get your phone appointment scheduled, because they were already, 2 months out in terms of scheduling phone appointments. They're not allowing in-office visits unless you have a very specific need to come into the office. So if you want to get on their schedule, I would say go ahead and give a call so you have the opportunity to have them review your options.
Very good. And I was going to say that I know we have some other texts that we're waiting, but let's take break number 2 of this hour. And when we get back, we'll be here to answer your texts at 684-126 or your phone calls at 314-931-5877. We'll be right back.
Diana from Newsteaders Fine Jewelers here to remind you, we don't just offer the best pieces, we offer one of the last master hand engravers in our country. My father can create timeless, personal, and unforgettable pieces. Come by our showroom at the corner of Big Ben and Doherty Ferry, or learn more online at wowdiamonds.com.
I'm Farmer Dave, and here's my good friend and owner of MasterCars Inc., Alex Rosenberger, with today's hot MasterCars Inc. deals.
Thanks, Farmer Dave. We're in full swing of our selling season, which means we're in full swing of our buying season, too. We're on the hunt for Corvettes, classics, luxury cars, muscle cars, conversion vans, and even everyday cars if they're in pristine condition. If you have something exceptionally clean, unique, or interesting, we want to talk. We'll buy motorcycles, too. We also love taking them on trade, and we're the end user with no middleman, which means top dollar for your motorcycle or a trade on a car. Buying, selling, trading, we want your business. We have very flexible financing options available with fantastic rates. Hop on our site to submit your vehicle for sale or pick out your new dream vehicle.
So rev that motor and point your car in the direction of MasterCars Inc. and buy or sell today. 4100 Namioki Road in Granite City, or visit MasterCarsInc.com to get more details. That's MasterCarsInc.com.
Can I get serious for a moment? Something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is my front yard and taking care of your front yard. Because when you drive by someone's house and it's full of weeds, you think to yourself, oh man, it's very, very simple. You know how much I love to pretend to be a yard dork. You know what I use? Fertilome. I go to fertilome.com and I type in my zip code, and a whole host of local independent lawn and garden dealers show up. I buy the crabgrass preventer plus lawn food. It's the spring application. I get it down on my yard as soon as possible, and that greens up my yard and keeps the weeds away. So it makes me look like I know what I'm doing. But really, all I'm doing is getting Fertilome and putting it on my front yard. And that will take care of my yard for many, many, many weeks, and it go a long way to having the greenest yard in the block. So this spring, you want to green up your yard and get rid of the weeds? It all starts at Fertilome or fertilome.com.
We searched the globe for the world's best furniture, and what I've found is some of the best quality is made right here in the USA. With superior construction, durable fabrics, and custom comfort options, Miller Furniture is proud to bring the largest selection of American-made furniture to the St. Louis area. Whether it's Smith Brothers in Bern, Indiana, or Oakwood Industries in Memphis, Missouri, our suppliers are family-owned and operated too. You'll see a variety of styles in stock and custom order options at any of our 3 locations, including our newest showroom in Ellisville on Manchester Road.
This is Mariah, 3rd generation at Newsteaders Fine Jewelry. Buying an engagement ring can be intimidating. At Newsteaders, we ensure complete understanding of your purchase. We offer a choice in both lab and mine-grown diamonds and are able to work with any budget. Let our family help educate you on your choice at Big Ben and Doherty Ferry or at wowdiamonds.com.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, welcome back. We've got about 10 minutes left here in the show. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. We call it Straight Talk on Retirement, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. I know we have a complex, complicated, important text to go.
You know, sometimes the technology just doesn't keep up with our textures. It came in an interesting order, but Rob has deciphered it.
They come in convoluted, and every now and again I mangle it, and I'm sure the listeners at home are like, can this guy even read?
Right.
It's really not us. It's not my
fault. So as we like to say, riddle me this, Batman.
That's right. Take it away.
And our next texter writes, good morning. Really enjoying the show so far this morning. I had a question. I recently retired from BJC. Congratulations. And I have a 401k worth approximately $100,000. I'm receiving a pension and Social Security. Congratulations. I know nothing about investing and wondering whether I should leave my 401k with the company or roll it into a self-directed IRA. I need to be very, very conservative with this money, and I'm struggling with the idea of paying someone else to manage it versus me wanting to be very, very conservative. Any ideas? Thank you.
So you do have access through the 401k plan sponsor, which I believe at BJC is Vanguard.
They just dump Vanguard.
Oh, all right. Well, we probably weren't supposed to mention that on the radio anyway. So since I was wrong, we could just pass on by that. You do have an individual attached to that plan that can give you what they call education based on your risk tolerance. You mentioned that you are very, very conservative. So keeping it inside of the 401k will put you in the lowest cost environment in terms of investing. It'll give you a little direction from an individual that can help you based on your stated risk tolerance. But if you happen to be listening, like you mentioned at the beginning of the show, it is going to create quite a few limitations for you in terms of accessing those dollars. So if you wanted to create a monthly income in addition to pension and Social Security, the 401k won't be able to accommodate that. If you'd like to be able to invest conservatively outside of what the 401k plan offers, so for example, many people find CDs to be a safe option in terms of market risk. You're not going to be able to purchase those inside of a 401k, so you're going to have some additional limitations based on the fact that you're leaving the money in the 401k. I would also just mention that rolling the money from a 401k to a self-directed IRA does not require that you hire an investment professional to assist you to charge a fee. You can always potentially work with a bank if CDs are something that you are interested in, or, recreate the conservative allocation that was created in the 401k. You can recreate that on your own in a self-directed IRA without using an investment professional. But my only comment, and I'm already looking at Dad thinking that this is what's about to come next, which is if you do not have investment experience and you're looking for someone to help preserve your assets, maybe it is worth considering the fee that that a professional is charging in order for you to have the peace of mind that someone with investment experience is going to help not only keep you in the conservative allocation that you are looking for, but also help you manage that over a long period of time, because we have even seen in our short history that in a short history rather, that what was considered a conservative investment in some environments does not protect you from loss. So when we were watching interest rates increase 3.5 years ago, the bond market, so the market value of your bonds was dropping relatively rapidly. So you can still see market loss. You still are subject to other risk outside of market risk that a professional might be able to assist and help you navigate.
And not only that, the rules are constantly changing. So, you want to work with someone who's keeping abreast of all these things. You want to work with someone when you become RMD eligible that's going to make sure that you're taking those, that you're not getting hit with the penalty. So there are a lot of benefits to working with someone who is a professional and does keep abreast of the constant changing nature of the rules.
Couldn't add anything to that. Very good.
Well, good. Then we'll let Dan on line one add to the show this morning. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning. I have a question about commercial property and the sale of it. It's valued at $600,000. If I sell it, how long do I have to reinvest it, or do I get hit with tax?
Dan, commercial property it's just it's a sale of at the time of the sale, you'll be subject to taxation unless you were able to do a 1031 exchange of that commercial property for another piece of commercial property.
How long do you have for that?
You don't have a day.
I thought you had like a 60-day window or something.
No, I mean what happens is that sale will create taxation. It'll be during that year. You don't have any. There's no grace period on it. What it suggests also is you have to remember is that when you sell that property, any depreciation that you take in is going to be recaptured,
right,
et cetera. So there are strategies that if you're, again, I would certainly work with or get together with a tax professional to talk about strategies that are available to you to reduce the effect of that tax. But the only way you're going to avoid the tax truly is by through a 1031 exchange of commercial property. But we do appreciate your call. Thank you.
I just did a quick look here. There are strict time limits. The replacement property must be identified within 45 days, and the exchange must be completed within 180 days.
That's on a 1031 exchange.
Exactly. So if you want to execute the 1031 exchange, you have to have the property identified, which means I'm assuming that means it has to be under contract within 45 days, and the actual close has to be within 180 days in order for you to offset any of those taxes.
You know, and what's interesting is that, again, we don't know any details about the situation here, but because I'm the one that brought up the 1031.
Right.
If we're just talking about I'm selling my commercial building, pay your taxes, brother.
Well,
that's just the way it works.
Well, also, I think there's an important distinction. The 1031 exchange doesn't eliminate the taxes. It just kicks the tax can down the road, so to speak, because when you do the exchange, like you said, Dad, you've already incurred the taxable event. Now, you might not owe the taxes if you're able to execute the 1031 exchange in the year that you do it, but if you were to sell the new property down the line, you have to recapture the taxes that you didn't pay.
Very good. You're right. I like that idea. And again, what's important is when you're getting ready to make these transactions, you do talk to qualified tax counsel.
Yes.
Whether it's a CPA or a tax attorney.
CPA or a tax attorney or an accountant, 1031 exchanges are complicated, and just as many other transactions in the tax codes, you want to make sure you're following all the rules so you don't get hit with an unexpected tax bill.
No one likes those.
Certainly not.
And every week we receive mailbag questions, and I thought we would go to one, given our last texter had a question about fees. And our mailbag questioner writes, is there a separate fee to meet with you for a coaching session, and how do your clients pay for your services?
There are no fees to meet with us.
No.
We consider our initial consultations no cost or obligation to you. So when you come and sit down with us, we chat. We have a few visits. If you decide that you'd like to work with us and we begin to manage assets on your behalf, that is when our fee begins. We charge 1% annually for the assets that our clients allow us to manage, and that is deducted from client accounts at 0.25% per quarter, so you do not have to write checks separately. The nice thing is when these fees are deducted from IRA accounts, there's no taxes involved. It's considered maintenance on the account. If you are allowing us to invest an after-tax account for you, those fees are deductible on your taxes if you're itemizing as part of investment advisory services. So there are some options there.
I was just thinking using our last texter as a template. So if someone came to us with $100,000, our fee would be $1,000 broken up in $250 increments throughout the year.
That's
right.
That's a partially correct because we attempt to track our clients' progress throughout the year. So using the easiest example, if you are already a client of ours on January 1st, the fee that we assess on January 1st for the first quarter is based on the December 31st account value. So then when we move to the next quarter, we're going to assess the fee based on the account value on the last day of the previous quarter. The fees are paid in advance. However, if you decide to leave us at any point, then they're credited back to you.
Well, thank you for demystifying that. And what we certainly don't want you to do is leave us, because we have our Medicare Hour next. So don't touch that dial.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to hour number 2 of Straight Talk on Retirement. As promised at the end of the last hour, we're going to talk smart choices about your health care.
Absolutely, and any texts that come through, we'll obviously circle back to you when we're done, as we always do. We will not forget about you, I promise.
But if you have Medicare questions or health insurance questions in general, don't hesitate, 314-931-5877, or send us a text, 84126 on the text line.
And as promised, it's that time, because you care, we talk Medicare.
So this is really cool. We had received an email from a client who's actually letting us know, this is how I found out that many people had received their back pay from the windfall elimination provision being eliminated. It's a weird way to, it's a weird sentence. Anyway, he had also mentioned a comprehensive 10-year look back at his Medicare Advantage plan.
And, you know, if you've listened to our Medicare segments for any length of time, you know we like to compare costs between Medicare Advantage plans, comparing their max out-of-pocket costs, the co-pays, your specialist visits. We love to compare we'll spend a whole segment during open enrollment talking about the add-on benefits such as dental, vision, hearing, because we know you guys love that. And, of course, my personal favorite, the over-the-counter benefit. But the comparisons don't stop there, because we also look at how these Medicare Advantage plans stack up against the supplement plans. And as we like to say in the office, let's let the best plan win. And what is the best plan? The best plan is the one that's best suited for you and your individual needs. Are you able to see the doctors and specialists that you want? Are you able to maintain the relationships that you already have? Are your drugs covered and in the lowest cost environment? Is there an upcoming medical event that we need to take into consideration? The answers to these questions will lend us to the place of what is the best plan for you.
Right. And this is really what I love most about Medicare, which is that for most people, your entire working career, your plan was chosen for you, or your plan was chosen for your spouse and therefore chosen for you because maybe you were on your spouse's plan. Maybe you had a couple of options if you worked for a particularly large employer, but you never really got to control your own health insurance benefits. When you transition on to Medicare, not only do you have options between Medicare Advantage and traditional Medicare, but you have options within those two options to find the best plan that is suited to you. And that's why, we get the question every year during annual enrollment, what's the best plan this year? And every year we got to say it's the one that fits you, because there is no top number one plan, even if, and I think this is in compliance, even if you have a 5-star rated plan in your area. We've had them in the St. Louis County and really the metro area with Essence for several years. If your doctors aren't in Essence,
it ain't 5-star.
Right. Is that the best plan? Probably not for you, but for someone that maybe already has Essence physicians, their prescriptions are covered, maybe then that is the best Essence option, or that's the best option for them through Essence. So, again, sitting down with a professional to answer all those questions and several more that you might have is going to help lead you to the best plan for you. And then you get to review it every year, because we know that your health doesn't stay the same and the plans don't stay the same.
Absolutely. I mean, if you are in a plan that perhaps maybe you put eyes on another plan, but you're already enrolled, and you're like, wow, I'd like to maybe segue over to that when open enrollment comes around. Obviously it never hurts. It can only help to sit down with a professional like Frank and in our office and put eyes on the new even if you're happy with your current plan, because you don't know what you don't know. Right, and it never hurts to find out, but you will never know unless you sit down with that unless you want to go digging through the plans yourself, which can be tedious and take away some time from
fun of retirement. Right.
I mean, who wants to start looking at the bylaws between Medicare Advantage plans? I mean, I can't imagine. My dad does that. He actually will go through all this. Dad, we love you. But
he's great.
He is. And, just an aside, we have no dog in this fight other than making sure that you're in the quote-unquote best plan for you, and that plan addresses your individual needs and concerns. There's no we're not compensated any different depending on what you choose. It's all about your happiness. And if you decide to work with us, if things should happen throughout the year, you get a bill that you're not quite
certain of.
Right. Or maybe there's an explanation of benefits that you didn't quite understand, because, I get those all the time, and I turn to my wife. I say, do I need this? Is this important? Can I chuck this? And, 9 times out of 10, I can get rid of it. But when you work with a professional like Frank, it doesn't stop with just signing you up for a plan and then it's like, okay, get out of the office. No.
Good luck to you.
Right, because Frank is every day helping people who are actively enrolled in plans in navigating the pitfalls and banana peels of those plans and making sure that they understand exactly what the ins and outs of everything is.
Also, in some cases, it takes a little additional administration off your hands. For example, a client left a voicemail last Friday afternoon that said, "Hey, Frank, could you check on my dental reimbursement from last year? I still haven't seen it yet." Well, instead of you having to call the insurance company, wait on hold, get transferred around, let Frank do it for you.
And Frank knows a bunch of tips and tricks at this point, and he can easily navigate the bureaucracy. I mean, sometimes I hear him cursing under his breath, but those are few and far between.
That's what he gets paid for.
Better him than you. And the last thing I'll say about all this, what does it cost to sit down with Frank?
Nothing at all.
It'll only cost you if you don't sit down with Frank, I like to say.
But that's really not the highlight of what we wanted to discuss this morning.
Absolutely not. With all that said, we received a wonderful email from a couple who made the switch from a supplement plan to a Medicare Advantage plan 10 years ago. What made this email unique was the couple in question, the Joneses, kept a meticulous record of their expenses and savings since they made the switch.
This is, not only was it cool, because first he sent a little spreadsheet that showed us just the top line numbers, which we're going to get to, and I won't steal Rob's thunder on that. But then he also highlighted every single medical procedure, test, x-ray that was done throughout the last 10 years, which I also thought was cool.
The results, or the executive takeaway, as I like to say, they were kind of startling. I mean, I always thought they'd save some money, but I was not expecting the numbers that ultimately came through.
So over the last 10 years, give it to us.
In the last 10 years, just in premiums, they've saved $38,000.
Now, that $38,000 is not just straight premium, because we're going to start. They had already subtracted quite a few expenses from those premiums, right?
Yes, they did.
All right, so let's talk a little bit more. Let's first go through all of the dollar savings. $38,000 in premium.
$3,500 on dental services.
$5,000 on hearing aids, and that's not using the hearing aid benefit every single year. So we can tell by some of these numbers that they're being, they're not just multiplying by 10, I could have had this many hearing aids. They used $5,000 of hearing aid services and devices.
$400 on eyeglasses.
And so we know for sure they're not using that benefit every year.
They probably did it once.
And in 10 years, it sounds like.
And then maybe one other time. Or maybe they both did 1 year. And
that sounds like about it.
$9,600 on gym memberships.
And your favorite, this is a great one. In 10 years, $3,900 on counter benefits.
I love that because, it's always nice to go in there and get all the over-the-counter stuff paid for. courtesy of your Medicare provider. So when we add so in total, between the both of them, they saved over $60,000 on their health care and other related costs, in addition to all the extra benefits they were able to take advantage of.
$60,000 in 10 years. Now let's get to the part that everybody's waiting for, which is...
Oh, I know what they're thinking out
What
there.
are they thinking?
Some of our listeners, I'm sure, are sitting back right now, sipping their coffee, saying, yeah, but they never ran into any health issues over the last 10 years. Those numbers would look a lot different if they did.
Well, the Joneses...
They were kind enough to include a complete list of their medical procedures over the last 10 years.
So for James, Mr. Jones, he's had routine checkups with his primary care doctor. For the vast majority of the last 10 years, those checkups have been at no cost. He occasionally visits the specialist, so he probably had between a $25 and a $45 copay.
Nothing out of the ordinary there.
No, and he had already subtracted that from his $38,000 of premium savings. He had both knees replaced. He has AFib, so he's had some treatments and some additional tests to help alleviate that. But as many of you know, that is an ongoing issue, not one that can necessarily be cured.
He also had cataract surgery on both eyes and not one, but 2 sets of hearing aids.
Okay, now let's not leave out Lisa Jones, his wife.
Absolutely not. As for Lisa, she also had a knee replacement. She also had an AFib treatment, and I know this had to be extensive, a complete foot reconstruction. So, I don't know what that entails, but I'm sure it involved surgeries, maybe plural, and certainly physical therapy. There's no way I could see you getting around that.
Certainly, and also some additional medical needs, like probably the little scooter that you got to go around on, because my aunt had a foot reconstruction, and that's like no weight bearing for 7 months.
You're talking about the scooter where
you put your knee up?
Yeah, I've seen those.
That kind of thing. So that's something that you have to pay for too. So between the 3 of them, they had 3 knees replaced, 2 hearing aids, heart issues, foot reconstruction,
2 cataract
surgeries, and they still, over the last 10 years, saved $60,000. I mean, this is real life, because we received this information completely unsolicited, which was really cool. It was, like I said at the beginning, part of a different conversation we were having, but as soon as it was revealed to us, it was incredible.
And we have a texter just write in. He writes, I am confused. Did the Joneses save $60,000 by staying on the supplement plan, or did they save $60,000 by switching to an Advantage plan?
It was the switch, my guys. The switch. They didn't have to pay premium for 10 years. They created additional savings for themselves because they didn't have to pay for dental coverage, but they received dental benefits. They didn't have to pay for hearing aid coverage, which I don't even know if there is hearing aid insurance, but they received it at no extra cost to them, that benefit. They didn't have to pay for eye coverage. They received eye care over the past 10 years. No gym membership fees, the over-the-counter benefits. We add that all in, plus premium savings. Our the Joneses subtracted out all of the expenses they incurred that we were talking about over the last 10 years, and they're still saving $60,000.
And it makes sense when you think about it. Because, I mean, as an aside, I'll just say everyone pays, despite what the TV tells you, everyone pays their Part B premium.
Yes.
So that's a cost that is built in no matter how you core the apple. However, when you get into supplements, you usually start between $185 and $225, depending on the supplement plan that you choose. But
and your age and all that.
Right,
yeah.
But it doesn't stop there. As my dad conveniently reminds me every time I talk to him about Medicare, you're on the escalator. And, you know, your costs at 65 are going to look different than at 66, 67, 68. They're constantly going up. And as we were reminded in a seminar that was about 18 months ago now, the days of the cost increases going up between, say, 3 and 7% are over, and now we're looking at premium increases in excess of 8% a year. So these are not inconsequential costs. They don't stop coming, And when we talk about all the extra benefits, whether it's over-the-counter, whether it's dental, whether it's vision, whether it's hearing, whether it's going to the gym, none of that, well, you on some supplement plans will offer a silver sneakers benefit, but beyond that, all the other peripheral benefits you're not going to get.
I also think when we cut to the heart of this, many people have a concern that over a long period of time, when you retire in your 60s, you're feeling good. You consider yourself potentially in the best health you'll have over the next 30 years. But the reality is that may all be true. But the reality is just because you consume services using Medicare Advantage, it does not mean that you are going to spend your maximum out of pocket every year. In fact, what it means is that the years that you have to spend money, you're spending it. But the years that you do not consume services, you don't have to turn money over to the insurance company. So that means that's money back in your pocket, either to spend freely as you'd like, or you consider it prepayment on the years that you do have to spend money. So everyone likes to think of their health in a one-year increment. What's going to happen to me this year? What do I need this year? And it's important to think of it that way on the short term, but you also need to have a long-term perspective, because most people are going to be on Medicare for between 20, 30, even potentially 40 years if you make it to 100 years old. So we want to think of it in decades-long increments as well. Not every year of your life is going to be the best year where you just see the primary a couple of times, maybe your specialist once or twice as well. But certainly not every year is going to be your worst. And even in the worst years, you are capped with a maximum out of pocket of how much you can spend on these Medicare Advantage plans. We're talking about this very generally because Medicare Advantage all operates in a similar way, just as the supplements operate in their own similar fashion. To have a true review of your health care needs, what we like to do is have you fill out a medical questionnaire in advance. Who are your doctors? What are your prescriptions? So that way, as Rob mentioned, we can lead to the best plan right now, and we can consider your health over a long period of time and say, what's the best option for you? Now, maybe Medicare Advantage is not the best option for everyone, but it's certainly nice to see that someone that's been on a couple that's been on the plan for 10 years has been able, between the two of them, to save over $60,000. So that's $30,000 of savings for each of them over a 10-year period, which means that, and they didn't have nothing going on. We're talking about multiple knee replacements, eye issues, heart issues. You don't have to be in pristine health in order to maximize Medicare Advantage benefits.
And I love that they itemized and gave us a comprehensive list of all the procedures that they had, because it really highlights the fact that, number one, every year can't be the worst year of your life health-wise. I think, what was that statistic you told me? 1 out of every 7 years is what you'll hit your max out of pocket?
That is correct. So Aetna and United Healthcare both did a study across their populations to determine how frequently people are hitting their maximum out of pockets. And Aetna determined that in the Missouri metro area, 1 time out of every 7 years, people are hitting their maximum out of pockets. And this is interesting because in Missouri, people tend to be very sensitive to the maximum out of pocket. And I like to think about the maximum out of pocket as the last benefit you receive from the insurance company. Because if your maximum out of pocket is $3,000, you have to spend $3,000 of your own money in some form or fashion to get to that benefit, right? Then the insurance company comes in and picks up 100%. So this argument goes in 2 ways. One, if you only hit your max 1 time out of every 7 years, that gives you 6 years to bank a portion of your maximum out of pocket to go towards that max. But also it should give some of you the freedom to consider plans that maybe have higher maximum out of pockets. If you are a lower usage individual and you want some additional freedom, or you want some different benefits, or you want access to other providers, we often talk about the HMO style plans because they have the lowest maximum out of pocket, but I think that should release some people of the fear of a little higher max out of pocket, because if you only know you're going to hit it 1 every 7 years, then you don't have to necessarily worry about the $4,500 versus the $3,000. You can be a little bit more liberal. And the final note I would say is Aetna tends to have some of the lower maximum out of pockets. So to see Aetna saying one time out of every 7 years, I think that's relatively reasonable. And we had a great text come through, which was a comment about, our texter listening to, watching some videos on YouTube about a professional that looks at all the Medicare Advantage plans across the country and does comparisons. And this professional said that Missouri and Illinois, which I've been saying for years, have some of the best Medicare Advantage plans across the country. We have generally low cost of living in this area, which helps drive down the maximum out of pockets, but also because we have such robust hospital systems in the area, insurance companies have the ability to negotiate with those hospitals to create those managed care plans, and they tend to be better. There's also higher population centers in these areas. Obviously, we're not in New York or California, but as you go into more rural areas, there are less hospitals, which has less negotiating power with the insurance companies, which is why for some people, maybe Medicare Advantage isn't the right choice. But if I even look back over my career, the last 15 years or so, even if we look across Missouri, so we have many individuals, probably many listeners even, that might have a second home down in the Ozarks in Camden County. 15 years ago, there was one Medicare Advantage plan down there, and it was a rural-based plan through United Healthcare. Now you can find almost every single Medicare Advantage company offering plans down by the Ozarks. So in Camden County, there's a few other counties surrounding the Lake of the Ozarks. But these plans continue to expand, which gives you better benefits. The last thing I'll say that I like to say is this is the first time you're in the driver's seat with your health insurance. Because not only do you get to pick what type of coverage you have, you get to pick what insurance company you're going to use. And in that, the insurance companies are actually competing for your business. Unlike with private coverage, take it or leave it. With employer-based coverage, take it or leave it. With Medicare, they want your business. So that's why we often see the plan benefits improving over time, the extra benefits improving over time, because you're their customer this time.
Missouri really is heaven when it comes to hospital networks, Medicare choices, and the costs associated with those services. So, I mean, I know this from talking to my dad because I had to walk him through a couple of options that were available to him back east, and they're nothing like the ones here. And, just as I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the Aetna Gold HMO Gold Advantage, right now the max out-of-pocket is $2,500. Well, if you were on a supplement and you were paying, say, $250 a month for your supplement, that's $3,000 a year. So that's $500 more than what your max out-of-pocket would be with the Aetna Gold HMO. I mean, not everyone would choose that plan, obviously, but my only takeaway from this is why front-run those costs? As my wife said, not every year of your life is going to be the worst one that you're going to experience. And if you only hit that max out-of-pocket once every 7 years by you paying the supplement, and maybe it wasn't the worst year of your life, and statistically,
just giving the insurance company money.
Right. I mean, and
who wants to do that?
Certainly not I. And like I said, when you start to pile on all the peripheral benefits, and not that that's a reason to choose a policy, it never is. Again, we want to put you in the plan that's right for you and your concerns and what you may have upcoming, but it's just a nice added benefit that, the Joneses certainly took advantage of. And, we really love these kind of stories because, number one, we love it when our clients save money, and we love to know that our clients are getting the most they can of these plans. And the compounding nature of these savings really add up. And we want to thank Lisa and James for sharing their story with us so we could bring it to you.
I just read it. I'm trying not to laugh too much on the air. One of the texters wrote, listening to the medical event sounds like a 12 Days of Christmas parody. I think we need to write that down so when we come up on Christmas time, not only maybe do we have our healthcare segment centered around, a partridge in a pear tree, but maybe some financial stuff too.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in. We've got to take our first break of this hour, so don't touch that dial. When we get back, we've got another excellent text question on the financial side that we will get to, so we'll be right back.
Hi, it's David Sherwood of the Inside Out Show and president of Sherwood's Forest on Barrett Station Road, just south of Manchester. Spring planting season is here now. We are full with the area's largest selection of flowering trees, Japanese maples, evergreens, and shade trees. Choose from dogwoods, redbuds, magnolias, and cherries to provide springtime fragrance and blooms. At Sherwood's Forest, you'll also find hundreds of green giants and junipers to screen thy neighbor. Enjoy the beauty of spring-blooming shrubs like azaleas, lilacs, viburnums, and large blooming perennials like Helleborus. We use Espoma's Biotone Starter Plus in all of our plantings. So head to the forest, Sherwood's Forest, 2651 Barrett Station Road, or check out our inventory at sherwoods-forest.com. Sherwood's Forest is open 7 days a week.
Home and garden showplace, making beautiful gardens come alive.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to hour number 2 of Straight Talk on Retirement. I hope you enjoyed that last conversation. I certainly do, and I really enjoy hearing this every week. And for me, it's so fun that our practice really does not only cover the financial side in terms of creating game plans for folks, but also the medical side. And having the ability to marry these two together really has, I think, we've heard, I have to tell you, I get emails every week about how great it is that we've been able to do this for them. And it really is a peace of mind thing for our clients. And frankly, it also saves them a lot of time. One place,
one-stop shop.
Exactly, as much as you certainly can do on that. So thanks again for tuning in and listening to that. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the, it's going to start filling up again real soon, text line.
Well, we've got one here, and I think this is going to be a good one. Okay. My husband, age 59 and a half, has a 401k through work that has large fees taken out for transactions made. We would like to close this before it is all eaten in fees. I'm thinking of moving the money into his personal Roth. He doesn't have one through work. It may be 3 or 4 different transfers because we can't take a huge hit on the extra income yearly. I want to do this now because of the last in and out rule and the 5-year rule. Is this a good idea, or do you have another suggestion? I don't know if either of you have a suggestion, but I have a suggestion.
Great, babe.
So my suggestion is, if the primary concern right now is the fees, and it's in a traditional 401k, why don't you create a traditional IRA account for your husband, roll 100% of that 401k into the IRA. That is a non-taxable transfer if it goes trustee to trustee. It's a pre-tax traditional 401k to a pre-tax traditional IRA account. And then if you are still interested in doing Roth conversions over the next 3 or 4 years, you can do that from the traditional IRA into the Roth account if you'd like to do it that way. You won't have to worry about any tax hit at one time. You can control that over the next several years. And even in the year that you do the initial rollover, you are able to also do that Roth conversion if you'd like to. It looks like, Dad, you have other pressing business that is not that's not the radio show.
It's one of our clients. Interesting, so I'm surprised they would give me a call because they know I'm on the air. You're right, babe, and we call that an in-service distribution.
That's well, he's retired. I think he's just 59 and a half.
Oh, I didn't catch that he was retired already.
Well, if he's not retired, then that's right. It would be an in-service distribution. You can still execute an in-service distribution into the traditional IRA, and then if you'd like to do Roth conversions from there, you can. You don't have to do direct. Essentially, what you are considering doing is Roth conversions through the 401k to a Roth IRA over 4 years, but you can eliminate the fee issue immediately
and control the taxation if they decide to if they ultimately decide to do Roth conversions.
Right, exactly. So you can control it over time.
Absolutely. It seems a little unusual that someone would have fees going into their 401k plan. I'd really want to check that.
Well, it's not really doing the same thing. We just received the follow-up. Isn't that doing the same thing, but just adding a step in between? Well,
you're adding a step in between, but that step is not taxable. And then from there, you can decide how you want to go about.
But also the initial issue was that the account was being eaten up by fees. So we can eliminate the fee issue from day one. You don't have to do it over a 4-year period. Also, there's no requirement for you to do Roth conversions to take those tax hits, which would be a completely separate conversation. So in my mind, let's solve the initial problem, which is the fees that you don't like. Also, because of transaction, so it sounds like you are actively managing this 401k account. So you might want to go to a lower cost fee environment in order to manage it on your own, doing transactions in, using maybe a lower cost broker to roll those funds to, and then control the conversions however you'd like. You can do it over a 20-year period if you wanted. It doesn't just have to be 3 or 4.
I would just say that the second half of that, stopping the bleeding is one thing, but possible Roth conversions, that could be a conversation that you really want to have with a financial professional, because there's a lot more that goes into it than what you might think, and there's a lot of other things to consider, a lot of moving parts here.
Agreed.
Great. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
Also, my dad's cell phone is on as well, so if you'd like a direct line to him, he's available. He might be busy talking for a few minutes, though.
Au contraire, mon frère. I'm 100% focused on the show. So I was going to say, I did receive an email this week from Judy, and we've talked
Judy.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about RMDs. We have lots of Judys, which is kind of fun, including my mother-in-law. And Judy writes that she has an IRA, traditional one, of $2.3 million. We'll need to draw approximately $92,000 this year in terms of requirement of distributions. We, as our client, we're currently sending her approximately $5,000 per month as a retirement income. She will need to draw, we know, because of that, an additional $32,000 this year. What do you think? Well, in our talking with Judy, her question really was, what are some things that we can do to use this money in a way that would enable her in her life a little bit more? We do know that she has 2 granddaughters today. I hate Judy. Okay, she has
goodness.
She has 2 granddaughters today. That wasn't too much of a.
It was too much.
Okay, that's good. That are enrolled in a local parish school. She would like to help them offset the costs for her daughter and her son-in-law, and of approximately $15,000 each, which is kind of cool. So that almost eats it up. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sending money to the parish school as a donation.
Well, so this one is unique. Be careful, guys. Which is, some parishes have been able to figure out a way for the donations to count as tuition. Other parishes have not made that transition, so you just want to be sure, if you happen to be a grandma or a grandpa that wants to help grandchildren out with a parochial school, that you're actually going to be able to count that as a donation. I'm sure that Judy probably would have done this regardless, even if it was tax-free
Yes.
or not. And so we could have still added this into the calculation. We just would have added taxes on top of that. Because, so for example, if you've got grandchildren and you want to help out with college, university tuition, there's no way to make that a donation, so that's going to be taxable to you. However, you can still use that to satisfy your required minimum distribution.
Yeah, so let's just talk about that for a minute. You would like to help someone. You would like to give them a gift.
Mm-hmm.
So let's sort of demystify gifting a little bit. We know that you are permitted to, as an individual, gift $18,000 per year to as many human beings as you would like.
So you
without limit.
You as a person can give $18,000 a year to every other individual person.
So for married couples, that's $36,000 a year.
Yes, and again, they can do that without filing a gift tax return. If you want to gift more than that amount, then you file a gift tax return.
And does that create taxes for anyone?
No, it doesn't. Gifts to human beings are never tax deductible, and receiving a gift is never taxable as income to you.
So then tell us, what is the purpose of the gift tax return that you have to file if you exceed the gift limit?
Well, what happens is that if you exceed that annual gift limit, the IRS wants to keep track of those excess gifts. Those gifts are then applied against your lifetime unified gift exemption, which currently is sitting at $12.25 million per, if you're a married husband and for wife. Also, what happens is if either of those spouses die and they haven't used up all that portion, it gets carried over. So let's use an example. Let's just say that.
Let's use Judy.
So Judy decides that she would like to help her children go to George Washington University.
A great institution.
Exactly. One that I've made contributions to, and they weren't charitable in the past. So what happens is, let's assume that tuition is $50,000.
I think it's more now.
I understand. I remember the whole 46.5 discuss with.
And that was a sweet 20 years ago.
Exactly. So let's say it's $50,000. If she gifts that to a grandchild or to parents to give to the children, the amount in excess of that $18,000, which would basically be $32,000, she would file on a gift tax return. That would then reduce her lifetime gifting amount by $32,000.
So $12,500,000 is the current limit after Judy passes.
Yes, and then under current law. And every year that she does this or makes gifts that are in excess
of the 18,
she will then file a new gift tax return. And what happens is it's additive. You show what the gift was on the previous return that was excess. You're adding a new gift in excess. You're coming up with a new total, keeping the record for basically a score sheet for the Internal Revenue.
So let's say over the course of Judy's life, she ends up gifting $500,000 over the gift limit on an annual basis over the course of her life.
Sure.
So that means when she passes away, the $12,500,000 exemption as it stands now would be reduced by $500,000, leaving her with $12 million.
Yes. Which she could then pass, and that property could then pass on to whomever without being subject to the federal estate tax.
It's still subject to all of the taxes that any of those individual assets would normally be taxed at. Like, for example, IRA assets still have taxes. Non-qualified annuities non-qualified annuities still have taxes, but there's no additional tax to the estate because it's under the current 12.5 limit.
Right, because what most folks they may not fully realize is that we have two tax systems that are going on at the same time when someone passes away. Number one is that we have the federal estate tax, which is the ability for you to pass on your assets to people other than a spouse. Because any transfers to spouses on death are always non-taxable. It's just the surviving spouse then would pay taxes if there is any due at their death. That's System A. System B is the federal income tax system. And as Erin was referring specifically to, if we have assets that are like a home or stocks and bonds, etc., things that you bought outside of your retirement accounts, we know those get a step-up in basis. They go tax-free. They aren't applied against your unified credit exemption. Or, I'm sorry, they're not actually applied against any federal income tax. But those IRAs, we know that if they're inherited by children, grandchildren, whoever it might be.
Non-spouses.
Right. They're subject to the 10-year distribution rule, and all the income that comes from those is subject to ordinary income tax. So two systems going on at the same time.
Most people never see that estate tax system.
Well, it's because they're dead.
Well, most acute. Most beneficiaries
Unless
never
they're down on it.
Correct.
Oh my God!
Most beneficiaries never have to deal with the estate tax portion because most people are inheriting estates less than $12.5 million at this moment.
Right. So, our job, we feel it is, our job is to assist our clients. And we talk about this every week, which is how we want to help them pass the assets they've taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate to the people they love with the lowest cost environment. Okay, and that is taking advantage of the tax laws as we know them. At the same time, in many cases, like we talk about, especially with IRAs, let's go back from it. Okay, I mean, with this visual, if I can. When I think of estate planning, I think of a cake.
A multi-layered cake.
A multi-layered cake. And most people have a 2-layer cake. Some have a 3-layer cake. Okay, so let's think about this. The top layer of your cake is your traditional IRA tax, i.e. taxable assets.
They're taxable to you eventually. They're taxable to your beneficiaries.
Layer 2, Roth.
Non-taxable.
To anybody who inherits them, etc.
And as long as you've met the requirements, non-taxable to you.
And then we'll call these and then layer 3 is the non-retirement assets. If you have a trust, they could be trust assets. If you don't, TOD assets, etc.
Also, your house would
your home
would be included in this.
Right. So we know that the bottom 2 layers are income tax free to the beneficiaries,
even if it's a non-spouse.
Right. The IRAs are not. They're fully taxable, and whomever receives them to non-spouses, it's income, and they've got to get rid of them within 10 years. So when we're doing estate planning, we like to think about, how much money is in these layers of the cake? And if we're actually interested in passing on and trying to do this in a tax-wise way, doesn't it make sense to try to pass the taxable assets to those individuals who are in the lower tax brackets?
So if we're keeping up with the visual, you've got the cake in front of you, and you didn't go to a beautiful, like Lydia's Bakery. So your layers aren't necessarily equal in size. And for most people, your IRA assets, the taxable portion is significantly larger than the other pieces because you spent your entire working career making those contributions. Obviously, most people's homes have significant value, which can change that other layer. But you've got layers that are of different sizes. Most people think of cutting the cake like you normally would, straight down, slicing.
With a knife.
With a knife, slicing right down. Every person gets a part of it. You've got 3 children. You slice the cake into thirds, and everybody gets a third of the cake, and each layer proportionally. Why don't we consider using a spoon instead? Or a scoop instead, scooping the layers out based on tax brackets.
Yes.
Or the beneficiaries that you have, grandchildren, right. God bless great-grandchildren.
God bless grandchildren.
I'm trying for you, Dad. So it's just another way to consider dividing up the estate. And what I've taken to saying to clients is we want to keep more of the money with your family. So inside the Lapidus family, less going to taxes. If you could distribute those assets a little differently and family members are going to receive larger portions of them than having to go to the government, wouldn't that be not only in your mind beneficial, but to your family overall beneficial?
You're right, babe. And I like to add a little something to that.
I'm sure you will.
Well, of course I do. Which is, you love your children. You want to pass these assets on to them, and you may feel, okay, this is a great idea. We'll let our children take care of the grandchildren. And if you're fortunate, great-grandchildren. Some have great-greats, etc. I would say no.
No?
No.
Don't be vanilla.
Well, it isn't only don't be vanilla, because we know that the grandchildren, if you're in your 70s, 80s when you're passing away, your grandkids are in their 30s, 40s, guess what? They're in a lower tax bracket. Obviously, their parents who are at the peak earning years. But more importantly, as much as I love my two daughters, one of them sitting about 10 feet from me, I do not, and I'm not going to leave the decision of when my money is being passed to them into their hands. Because as much as I love them, I know that my grandchildren will end up being my age by the time they get that money from their kids. So
that we're not, but see, that is a misconception because you'll be here and you're more than willing. We're more than welcome.
I'll be Moses' age, right?
And
exactly.
More than happy to allow you to give as much of your money to our future children as you would like.
Okay, so I guess I'm saying is from beyond. Okay?
From beyond.
Dead man control.
Dead hand control. That's a good one.
Yes, exactly. So it's just certainly something to consider. So the tax laws have really been changed in such a way to give you the impetus to think about how you want your distribution plans to work.
Think of multi-generational wealth.
Exactly. And frankly, this is a fun conversation we're having with every single client during every single coaching session. Because at the end of the day, I've always felt, for the last 25 years, that maybe at the end of the day, this is the most valuable function that we can provide for our clients. Not only preserving and growing and getting them the income they want, but then at the end, making sure that their wishes are taken care of, executed in a tax-efficient manner. Everybody's documents today are vanilla.
Almost every single one.
Literally every single. Yeah, I'm gone goes to spouse. Spouse gone goes to the kids. Kids goes to the grandkids.
Even when we see second marriages, in many cases, it's still vanilla. It's more complicated vanilla, but it's I pass away, my spouse still gets to live off of the interest or gets to maintain their lifestyle from the assets, and then it goes on to our respective children if there are different sets of children. The tax law changed, and that means that it really makes sense for you at least to review, consider making a change to what your estate plan looks like. And in many cases, these are just beneficiary updates. This doesn't necessarily have to be an arduous or expensive process for you, but it is something that you want to think about and consider, and then have conversation with your investment professional, or if you're working just strictly with an accountant, maybe you're another type of financial professional in your life or your attorney. I think we should take our last break of the hour, but when we get back, we have two really great questions, one of which is a gift question. So don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Staples.
I hear Staples prints it all for any business.
You bet, and we'll beat any print quote.
So if I had a pizza place...
Staples can print signs, menus, pizza boxes.
A landscaping business?
Oh, we can print yard signs, T-shirts, brochures.
How about a pizza/landscaping business? I'll call it Dough and Mo.
I like it.
Right now at Staples, get up to $250 off your print purchase. Ends 4/5, exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/print for offer details. Price match guarantee valid in store and staples.com/print. Visit staples.com/price match for details.
It's bracket season. Dogtown bracket, that is. And while the players take the court, the Dogtown pizzas hit the ovens.
Pepperoni versus sausage. Bacon versus veggie. And don't forget #1 overall seed.
Hot chicken. And with 13 different varieties, this will be the tastiest Final Four in league history. Celebrate tournament time with Dogtown Pizza and build your own bracket with 13 different varieties. Dogtown Pizza and dogtownpizza.com.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, we're back here on the Big 550. We've got about 5.5 minutes left to answer your questions and calls. 314-931-5877 or 84126 on the Getting Ready to Burst text line.
And let's get to some of our texters waiting patiently. And our next texter writes, can we gift farmland and farm machinery that has depreciation to be paid back on? Very good question.
The answer is yes. You want to have the farm property appraised, and you're obviously, you'll have fair market value on that. Unfortunately, because you've depreciated the farm equipment, it would be at the depreciated value.
So
the answer is you probably wouldn't.
So would it be recaptured before the gift?
No, it's not a sale. You just
Okay.
What happens is, again, it's the basis, your basis, whatever that you're gifting, is your basis.
Got you.
Okay, so as an example, let's just say this farm property was worth, you bought it at $1,000 an acre.
Okay.
But it's worth $10,000 an acre.
So
well, if you want
$9,000.
to gift it to a charity, guess what? You can gift it at $10,000, but if you gift it to your grandchildren, it's only $1,000. You only get to the gift values at $1,000.
But then that means that you would, in that example, most likely you would have a gift tax return to file because it would be unless you're gifting only 2 acres.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I said this wrong.
Yeah.
The gift is at $10,000.
Right.
But if they were to sell it, their basis is $1,000. It isn't $10,000. Oh. What happens is that when you receive a gift, you receive the donor's basis of that gift. So they could give them $10,000 as an acre, but guess what happens if they sell it and you only paid $1,000? They pay capital gains taxes based on how long they hold that property on the $9,000.
Could be a situation where it could make sense that they be the beneficiaries of it, so they get that step up in basis.
So,
well, exactly, which means you typically don't gift highly appreciated property. You hold that until death.
that makes sense. So then, okay, let's say that they had a tractor and it was $100,000 when they bought it, and they've depreciated it over time. And let's say they depreciated it down to $50,000 at this point.
Well, same thing, honey.
If they gift it,
they gift a $100,000 tractor. That's great, but if kids go and sell it, guess what? $50,000.
So the depreciation has no the depreciation was theirs to assume on the taxes.
Right.
It doesn't have any bearing on the gift itself.
That's correct.
Okay.
So the answer is don't do it.
And it's a little different than gifting cash because cash's basis is what you gifted it at. So it's very clear. I give $18,000. That was the basis in it. That's it. You're under the gift tax limit for an individual. This is the same idea as gifting stock, which is we oftentimes say don't gift appreciated stock to family members while you are alive because they are assuming your cost basis. Whereas if you were to pass away and gift it to them as a beneficiary, then they get to assume the cost basis at your death, meaning it's going to be non-taxable to them, or they only pay the difference in the date of your death and when they sell it, which could be significantly less than, if you owned a popular stock.
So that moral story is if you're hell-bent on doing it and actually getting that gift out of your estate, you gift cash so they can purchase that stock or you purchase it for them at that moment. So they have that basis,
they have a clean basis.
Which is equal to the gift, and then if it grows, they'll sell it later. That's cool for them.
Gotcha.
What a great provision to step up.
Let's get to our last question before the end of the show.
And our questioner writes, question on Medicare. I'm 67. My wife is 71. I'm renting this year. I'm retiring this year from my company job, and we're both going on Medicare. I'm wondering if we need Part D and F for drugs or just Part B. We're both in good health and do not have a lot of medical issues, thankfully.
Yes. Medicare Part A and B only cover 80% of your medical expenses. That leaves the last 20% for you. That sounds like not too bad. If you got a $100 medical bill, you pay $20. What if you have a $10,000 medical bill? You pay $20,000. Well, you probably wouldn't pay $20,000 because that's double, but you'd pay $2,000. So what a supplement or a Medicare Advantage plan will do is going to put a cap on how much you can spend every year. It's going to put a ceiling on your annual expenses. If you're in relatively good health and feeling like Medicare A and B is good, you might want to have a conversation with someone about a Medicare Advantage plan because it's going to add prescription benefits for you. It's going to add that top-end protection, but it's going to be at no additional cost to you or your wife in most cases. So that way you get all of your bases covered and you don't have to worry about about additional expenses, but you do not want to have just A and B because you are opening yourself up to an 80-20 policy that has no top-end protection.
See you next week.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group.